This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And this week we're talking with one of Georgia's newest breweries, Contrast Artisan Ales. With me, as always, is someone who I don't have anything witty to say about.
I'm a little disappointed.
I know, I don't mean to let you down, but you are still Brian Hewitt.
I still am. Now I have a lot of anxiety for no reason.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
So joining us today, we have Chase Medlin, the founder of Contrast Artisan Ales in Chamblee, Georgia. It's a new brewery with new beers just in time for the new year. We'll talk about some developments at the Brewers Association, and I have some good news for people who are already sick of their New Year's resolution. Chase, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We appreciate it, man. We appreciate it. So we've actually got into some of your beers here already. We are in one that's releasing soon, or by the time this show goes out, it will have released. But this is your Luminiferous. Did I get that right?
You did.
Luminiferous IPA. Can you tell us about this one?
Just wanted to do something in the hazy vein. I don't know how stable it'll be, but it's holding out so far so good. But it's super bright and fruity. It's got a little bit of bitterness. That's kind of my style. I don't go all the way juicy hop water. I like to keep it a little bit more real, a little bit old school, if you will, and still have some bitterness there as well. But with Citra and Eldorado, it's really popping with all the fruity. And I just felt like the brightness and kind of fruit forward hop aroma and flavor that you're getting from it kind of emulate the name. And the name itself was actually inspired by luminiferous ether, which is a theoretical term from the physics of light. But
wow, all right, this beer is deep, man. This
and bright,
beer is
apparently,
deep.
yeah.
Crazy stuff. Well, it's really tasty. And I do get that, the bitterness. I've talked about it many times here that I'm not a bitter fan, but there's bitterness that is balanced and soft, and it's present, but it's not dominating. And we've got something we're going to talk. We're going to dig into the history books a little later, Chase, and talk a little bit about bitterness and IPAs. So
I do like that it is anchored in the tradition of IPAs having some bitterness to them. I mean, I do like the juicy ones, but I like it when there's a little bit.
You've been known to hang on the West Coast.
I have been.
Right?
I've been known to spend some time in the West Coast.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, Brian, how was your week, man?
It was good. It was good. I think the biggest and most interesting thing I did this week was I checked out a grand opening of a sushi and Japanese small plates place in Chamblee, Georgia, not far away from where Chase is at.
There you go.
Called Fudo, Fudo, with a line across.
And if you're an Atlanta
yeah.
person, there is no relation to the business of a very similar name, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
how have I not heard about this Fudo?
They just opened like this week. It's not far from where you're at. The mayor of Chamblee was there. I got to talk to him. He was there for the ribbon cutting. It was very cool.
Eric's an awesome guy.
Yeah, he's very cool and a big fan of craft beer. So yeah,
maybe we'll get him on sometime. Chamblee's, it's up and coming.
He basically said anytime we need to talk to him.
All right, perfect.
Anytime. So
sounds good.
While I was there, of course, I had the sushi rolls and things like that. Tasty food. Had they were pouring Jekyll's Hop Dang Diggity. I've gotten comments already about not having some sort of a rice beer,
rice
lager
right?
or something like that. I'm like, I just went with something local. I guess I could have, but. And while I was there, right around the corner, there's a place called Bad Daddy's Burger Bar, and I'd seen, because I maintain a calendar of events, I'd seen that they'd done beer events there. I stuck my head in to see how they are with craft beer for real, and actually a really good tap list. You know, I didn't try any of the food, but I did have their they have a full sale made beer house that's Big Daddy's Amber Ale, so I had that. Good, solid beer.
Good.
And then, of course, I made the trip over to Atlanta Brewing Company to bring us some Postbellum Imperial Stout,
which was tasty.
Which we were just trying.
Absolutely.
So that was good stuff. Yeah. How about you, Tim?
You know, I had a busy week with life things, Brian.
Life things.
I didn't get to do a lot of fun stuff in that. We had some fun last weekend. We hung a TV.
The trials and tribulations of hanging a TV.
Man, I've hung several TVs actually, but this one, it wasn't having it. It wasn't having it. But we're proud to say that now in the Beer Guys Radio studios, we have a very nice TV up on the wall, and it has not fallen down. Yeah. No one has been killed by it, and it's still in one piece. So at least for now, it was a successful mission.
I'm happy with it. I'm ecstatic about it. I've never been more excited about an appliance hanging on a wall. Too.
Right. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Chase, how about you? How'd your week go?
Busy, but good.
Well, yeah, you got a new brewery to run, so that'll do it, right?
Yes.
A lot of brewing, absolutely. I take it.
Yeah. Pretty much a one-man show at this point, and then I've got some bar staff. But yeah, so it's a lot between all the production and building of you name it. And everything from legal, accounting, bookkeeping, everything. Little shout out to Taylor Harper there.
He's a good dude.
He is
good
a
guy.
good
Absolutely.
dude. Oh man, can't praise him enough for all the help.
When I first asked
awesome.
Chase how his week was, he said good, but his eyes and the shoulders fell a little bit. He's like, good.
It was good now that I'm here.
Good deal, man. Good deal.
It's always a good
to
time
have
here.
a break.
Absolutely.
Speaking of good, it's time for the beers of the week, Tim, I think.
Brian, we've got a lot of good beers to get into this week. We had a little pre-gaming session that we do sometimes. We got into one from Terrapin, Beyond the Galaxy. We just got a sample of their new this year's release of that one. We also got into Creature Comforts Innocuous IPA, a newer one from them. And Atlanta Brewing Company, as you mentioned, their Postbellum Stout, which was really good. I'm just having a rough time with this week. I can't even talk. But Postbellum, I did say that right. Atlanta Brewing Company, really, really nice Imperial Stout. Enjoyed that one quite a lot. So
Woodford barrels.
Woodford
Reserve barrels. Yep.
All right. Yep. And then we're into this Luminiferous. I did say that one. I got that one right from Contrast, and we have their Hypnotize coffee, which is Hypnotize Biggie Coffee Stout that we're going to get into a little bit later.
That sounds really good.
Good stuff, man. So, Brian, what's happening in this week's news?
So it's the end of an era. Charlie Papazian is leaving the Brewers Association this month.
What?
Yes. There's a lot of shock involved in this. He did announce it, I think last year, that this was going to happen. It's coinciding with his 70th birthday on January 23rd, after 40 influential years in the world of beer and home brewing. And amongst his accomplishments are the founding of the Brewers Association, being its president, the founding of the American Homebrewers Association, the National Homebrew Competition, the Great American Beer Festival, the World Cup, and starting Zymergy Magazine and the New Brewer Magazine. And he wrote The Complete Joy of Homebrewing, which I believe every home brewer and a lot of pro brewers probably still have on their shelf somewhere. So there's
Slacker.
Yeah.
What's he done? No.
Yes.
You know what? When you put it all, like, I knew he did all that, but I've just never heard it all put together at the same time. It's amazing.
It's really impressive, and honestly, there's no word on what he will be doing next after this. I don't think he said, but whatever it is, there's a good chance he'll be doing it with a homebrew.
Thank you, Mr. Papazian.
Thank you so much. So here's a story I've been seeing a lot. If you're sick of your New Year's resolution, as I mentioned before, I've got some great news. Being overweight, drinking coffee, and alcohol may be the secret to long life. So this is according to research done by the University of California's Irvine Institute for Memory Impairments and Neurological Disorders, UCI Mind. They've been monitoring 1,600 people that are 90 or older since 2003, and they found that the people who drink moderate amounts of coffee and alcohol live longer than people who abstained. So moderate, I think, is the key.
Oh.
They didn't say exactly how much that is, so I'm like 3 or 4 or 8 a day. I think it's 1 or 2 is what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever it is. They also found
Brian, you're either going to live forever or die in a couple years.
very likely. Either one or the other is very likely to happen. So they found people who were overweight in their 70s lived longer than people who were normal weight or underweight, which is pretty new and shocking, actually. But at the same time, regular exercise and having a good hobby also help prevent people avoiding a premature death. So if craft beer counts as a hobby, all I need to do to live forever is add a little ineffective exercise to my life.
A little bit of ineffective exercise.
It can't
right?
work because I have to still be overweight. So
okay. There seems to be a lot of conditions to this.
Yes.
Being overweight and drinking coffee. You threw a lot of conditions in there, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to work in my favor, though. I think I've worked out the puzzle. So,
well, good luck, Brian. Good luck. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk with Contrast Artisan Ales.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
The numbers all go to 11.
Does that mean it's louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you miss an episode, don't worry. All episodes are available as a podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and never miss a show. We're talking with Chase Medlin of Contrast Artisan Ales.
Chase, we took a little break in between segments there, and we talked about conspiracy theories and radio ratings and all. I don't even remember what all we talked about.
Everything.
There was a lot of craziness there, wasn't there? So, but we did during that break. We poured your Hypnotize Biggie Coffee Stout, and I'm enjoying that quite a lot. I love coffee beers, but can you tell us a little bit about this beer?
Sure. So it's an American Imperial Stout, a little higher on the IBU range, obviously. And instead of calling it Imperial Stout, because I just feel like it can be so stuffy, I decided to call it Biggie Stout. And then to further that and paying homage to Biggie Smalls, I called it Hypnotize Biggie Stout. And then this is the coffee version. So it's infused with a concentrated cold brew Nicaraguan dark roast coffee. And 8.9%. And drinks pretty smooth.
It does. It's very smooth.
Pretty psyched about it.
Yeah, I see you looking, Brian, but don't do it yet. I know.
Looking at the coffee questions.
The coffee questions.
Because there are questions about coffee.
We'll get there. We're going to talk coffee. We are. I promise, man.
Coffee talk.
I told Brian before we started the show. I said this is 2 weeks in a row where coffee is actually a relevant topic for us, rather than you just trying to throw it at him, Brian.
I always try to sneak it in. So what do you think about coffee? Do you like coffee?
We talked to Camino Brewing last week, and their Cafe Con Leche Imperial Stout won the Sacramento Coffee Beer Fest Best of Show. So
nice,
solid coffee beer. Yeah.
But enough about that. This is about Chase Medlin and Contrast Artisan Ales. Chase, can you tell us kind of what got you to open in Contrast? Kind of what's your craft beer journey there?
Oh man. So started as a home brewer living in Eugene, Oregon. Homebrewed a little bit, dabbled in college, made god-awful beer back then. And then after living out there, did some partial grain mash with some friends and stepped up to all grain and continued to do that. Saw some breweries around me opening like Ninkasi, which was very inspiring at the time. Still love everything they do. But moved back east. I worked in advertising after school, and that's what I was doing. That's what moved me to Oregon to begin with. And then when I moved back after the economy tanked, was looking at what the next move was going to be. worked odd jobs, taught guitar lessons, and landed in a job being the assistant brewer for Jordan Fleetwood, who was the original brewmaster at Twain's in Decatur. And we brewed together for a while. And when he left, David Stein came on, and we brewed together for a year. And then he left to start Creature Comforts, at which time I took over as head brewer, brewmaster, whatever you want to call it, and scrapped all the old recipes and started fresh because I felt like that was like the time to.
This is my house.
That's right.
All
That's right.
Yes.
And so that continued on for another 4.5 years and had a wonderful time. Experimented like crazy. Changed up the SOPs quite a bit while I was there. I did almost 250 different beers in the time that I was head brewer, individual recipes, and then left there. I had been planning a number of breweries. I mean, it was one at a time, but at first I had partnered with a few guys, also restaurant guys in Atlanta, and we were going to open a brew pub in the building that is now Staple House in Old Fourth Ward. Okay. And we had a building purchase agreement in order. Everything was set to go. And then one of the big investors found out that because of another loan he was tied up and could not invest in the project.
Ooh, I see.
And that went sideways after we had negotiated. And the guys who owned the building didn't even want to sell it, but they were selling it because they knew it would go to a good project. And so that was going to be called Terminus City, and that didn't come to fruition. And then
I missed that one. I knew about some of the others, but I missed Terminus City. Okay. All right.
And then the next one after that was Locomotion, which was going to be 3-vessel, 30-barrel brew house, and all of our tanks were streamlined in 90s out of the gate. And that was going to also be in Chamblee, slated to open for early 2017. And after about 3.5 years of work into that, 8 months into a lease and quite a bit into our spend towards a loan, we had a construction budget overage, and then complications afterwards sunk that. My partners at the time made a decision. They had majority stake and made a decision that sunk the whole thing, much to my chagrin. But I learned a valuable lesson not to not have majority.
You're stubborn, man. You should have given up a long time ago, right?
And so, I didn't think I was going to brew again. I was pretty down and out. My wife and I were engaged at the time, and our wedding was going to be the following June, and we were going to have the whole reception at the brewery, not a small wedding. And for that all to go that way, and it was a pretty rough patch for me.
I understand. Sure, man. Absolutely.
So,
because we talked a lot as Locomotion was going on. It's kind of what was going on there, and I could tell you know, that was a heavy hit for you, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Easily the hardest single thing I've ever gone through. And it was just so multifaceted with all those things. And long story short, took some time off, and a friend turned me on to a couple of guys who are starting a brewery out in Lawrenceville and said they might need some help. And at the time I was like, listen, there's enough people out there starting breweries who don't know what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to solicit, my expertise if people don't, really want, the help and knowledge and what have you. And sure enough, I was basically like, you can give my number if you want. And sure enough, he did. And then they called me immediately, and they were totally receptive and appreciative and wanted to move forward. So our whole family went out and visited the brewery the next day. And I worked for Slow Pour, launched the brand about 6 months after that, and then was there in total about a year and 8 months. And then towards the tail end of that, with their full support, got everything in line for Contrast.
That's cool. It's nice the way the camaraderie we see within the brewing industry, that you do stuff like that. And we talked a little bit about like David leaving and going to Creature Comforts from Twain's, and you going to Contrast. That's commonplace here. We see a lot of breweries, and as far as I know, unless they're just not telling us, most breweries are supportive of that. They're not trying to hold you back in that. They understand if you have that desire, that entrepreneurial spirit. Most of them are supportive of that. As long as you're giving them what you need to at their business while you're there, they'll pat you on the back. I only know of one story where it did not go amicably. And I won't broadcast
won't mention that on the air.
Sure.
So you wound up trying twice to get into Chamblee. I'm curious, what is it about Chamblee, Georgia, that drew you to that location specifically? Because you had the locomotion, you tried to go there, and then, of course, now you've opened Contrast Artisan there successfully.
It's at first I wanted to be in the city. I lived and breathed and worked in Decatur for so long that's where I wanted to be. And at the time, back then, I wanted a big production brewery because our laws were terrible in Georgia.
Sure.
And thank the powers that be that they are much better now.
And your buddy Taylor Harper.
And my buddy Taylor Harper.
Yes, Nancy Palmer, Taylor Harper.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, guys. But at the time, it was really like, if you wanted to get out of the red within a decade, you had to have a big production brewery. So I structured the business to be a production brewery, and there really just wasn't a building that was right for it that I could find anyway. After Brian opened 3 taverns and Eric and Nick opened Wild Heaven, there just weren't a whole lot of spaces that were big enough to even house a brewery. But yeah, so anyways, to still be inside the perimeter and to serve that kind of thoroughfare, if you will, and also hope maybe offer something as a watering hole for people who are sitting in traffic,
Come and grab a beer, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Chase, we're going to talk more about Chamblee in just a minute, but you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be right back.
I was free forevermore.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery, set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Are you thinking about opening a brewery in the Atlanta area? If so, take a look at the Park at Georgetown. This unique community will feature a collection of restaurants, as well as a craft brewery within the new J.W. Holmes luxury development, Dunwoody Green. Conveniently located less than half a mile from I-285, this enclave of restaurants will be the gathering place in Dunwoody. Krim & Associates, the developer of the Park at Georgetown, wants to talk to you. For more information, call Todd Semrau at 404-226-6526.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to our newest radio affiliate, WWDC HD2 104.7 FM in Washington, D.C. Catch Beer Guys Radio on 104.7 FM every Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We're talking with Chase Medlin from Contrast Artisan Ales.
Chase, when we went to break, we were talking about Chamblee. Chamblee? So this is something I learned on break. I'm not saying the name of the city right. So I'm going to say it the way I think I'm supposed to say it. Chamblee.
You got it.
Did I get it? Okay.
You got it.
You got it.
I was saying Chamblee. I was emphasizing the wrong portion of the
sounded like a wine. I think it actually classed up the place.
Did classed up the place, Chamblee. Would you like a glass of Chamblee, Brian?
Now that you say that,
now
yes.
you do.
Actually,
right?
I do.
So Chase, Chamblee. I'm never going to get this right.
Chambois.
The city's really growing there. I mean, Contrast is there. We have Hopsticks that's been there a little over a year now. Hopsticks, a nice brew pub, Asian brew pub over there. We've got some nice craft beer there. Brian, you went to Fudo a little earlier.
Fudo. Yes.
Fudo.
There's a long bar above the U that
the
makes
long
you,
U, right?
Okay. That will make you not say pho. It'll make you say foo.
Fudo.
Yes.
But you went to that new restaurant over there. But Chamblee is growing. It's growing there. There's a lot going on in Seatown, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
But when you chose over there, was there a lot already there? Was that part of it, or did you want to kind of be part of bringing it up there?
The original plan was to be part of bringing it up there, and I feel like I'm still on that wave. It's just developed a little further. So when Locomotion was the plan, the big production brewery with the laws being the way they were at the time, that was, I kind of just saw Brookhaven blowing up, and I knew that was going to reach a critical mass where the next logical thing was going to be Chamblee in terms of growth. And between then and now, they've opened a flagship Whole Foods store, which totally vetted the demographic for a small, more artisan-based brewery. And then, we've seen a lot of growth, tons of new residential construction. It's growing a lot. And, it's super exciting. I think we're going to see a lot more coming down the pipeline. There's a plan for a development right by my property that should be kind of like a town center, maybe have like an amphitheater and some other residential with retail below. So,
because it was not that long ago at all that if you were asked what was in Chamblee, nothing. You didn't go there. There was just really nothing there at all.
And that was another thing I didn't mention earlier when I was picking Chamblee was that I wanted to be in the city, and I also wanted to be MARTA accessible, because I feel like rapid transit is just something that's underutilized in Atlanta. I mean, the way it's designed isn't optimal for sure, but
definitely.
I was spoiled having it in Decatur, and I still wanted to be able to access it and have people be able to come to our location and use it as well. So.
And another important factor besides the MARTA accessibility is you're very hot chicken accessible.
Yes.
That is a good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Gus's?
Gus's world famous hot chicken, right?
And
right
some
there.
of the finest fried okra in the South.
Honestly, still, I've not had a better fried okra anywhere.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Pretty impressed with that.
Now,
quite an endorsement.
Chase, moving along, man, we wanted to talk to you some about your artwork. You've got some really cool murals and other art in there. So who are the artists that you work with on that?
So I've got two guys. One goes by Jagua Martian, and he's an Atlanta-based artist. Went to the Art Institute and has done a lot of street art since. And he's just blowing up right now. And then the other one is a San Francisco transplant who's been here a little over a year and a half, I think, Austin Blue. And Austin is also just killing it right now. So they did a big collaborative piece that's about, I think it was 11 by 15, so pretty big wall.
Big, yeah.
And, definitely a focal point in the space, and that was phase 2, but yes.
That's it. Sam just showed us a picture. He's Instagramming, I think they're showing us some of those.
So which one was responsible for the big head in the center, right? One of them
so
did like the background, one did the head.
Yeah,
right?
that's Austin.
Austin did the head.
So he's doing a lot with animals and juxtaposing like more traditional brush strokes with really dynamic color spectrums.
Kind of like geometric and
that's
a lot
of a big mix of geometric and the animal heads.
Intense color,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can see a couple of his works in town as well. There's one right outside Carroll Street by the old Fourth Ward near I think it's the Cotton Mill Lofts there near the I'm totally spacing, but near Carroll Street Cafe, and I'm totally spacing the bar that's right there, but yeah, right off the MARTA tracks.
But there is a bar down there near MARTA, down in that. So, and for those not in Atlanta area, we're dropping a lot of local. We're all Atlanta guys, so there's a lot of things we're referring to. It's all the ATL.
There are some concentrations of street art, and that's what we're talking about here.
Yes.
It's cool.
Yes.
It's very concentrated. You get street art around, and some of it's just kind of graffiti, but
there are neighborhoods
really
that are a lot more with really nice street art there.
And the city of Atlanta and the Rapid Transit Authority have worked together to help really give the artists a place to legitimately put their art on the walls, which has been a really awesome thing over time. And that's the walls that I'm talking about down there totally display that. And part of the whole concept was, with Contrast, taking inspiration, whether it's the beers or our branding or anything else, from art, design, science, and then also trying really to promote and showcase local artists. Part of what I offered was, I have this budget for this mural, but also free space in our tasting room can be used as your gallery. So we also have both artists' work available for purchase on the walls as well.
Because you'd planned with Locomotion, you were going to have a fairly substantial sized gallery there, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are you a big art collector?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom's an artist. I took a lot of art classes in college.
Okay.
And still dabble. But
see, we've got our Catlanta print there.
Oh, yeah.
So
nice.
Little one that we had commissioned that we did that as a charity piece.
We did.
To raise funds. We auctioned the original.
Okay.
And gave the funds to the Giving Kitchen.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. Yeah, when the Living Walls project was in Atlanta, I was involved, well, more as a supporter, but had a lot of friends who were organizers in that, and that was a really beautiful thing. And I just feel like, we need to have more and more programs in place to let these guys be known and get their work out there.
So I've been to Contrast Artisan. I had a look around. It was the big opening. It was very very well attended. I didn't actually get a look at everything going on. Tell us a little bit about the brew house. I didn't actually see it. I think I've seen some Facebook pictures, but I haven't actually visibly seen or had a tour, so to speak.
Yeah, it's an oversized 7-barrel system, and everything is unit batch. So the fermenters are single batch and the bright tanks are single batch, and we run single wall bright tanks, inside a walk-in cooler. So for intensive purposes, our serving vessels, and then we'll keg off of those as well, and then do other infusions. And we're starting a barrel program, and then there might eventually be an off-site something or other for like a hypoallergenic, some mixed culture, and yeah.
Okay. All right.
Interesting. So you do plan on starting a barrel program. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. We're getting short here, but let me talk real quick about this beer that we are currently sipping on. We pulled one. Chase, you pulled this out of our beer fridge for us here. This is the Woodlands Circle released it. They just Gunnison series, Brian.
The Gunnison series.
This is a double barrel imperial stout aged in bourbon and dark rum barrels with coconut and lime. Now I'm going to be straight up with you guys here. I didn't know what to think. A stout with coconut and lime in it. I wasn't sure. This is delicious.
It's really
this
good.
is really
extremely good.
I've enjoyed everything they've done, but I didn't expect to like this as much as I do. Very tasty. Well done, Nick B. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more with Chase from Contrast Artisan Ales.
Ground my soul and ground my brain.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Are you thinking about opening a brewery in the Atlanta area? If so, take a look at the Park at Georgetown. This unique community will feature a collection of restaurants, as well as a craft brewery within the new J.W. Holmes luxury development, Dunwoody Green. Conveniently located less than half a mile from I-285, this enclave of restaurants will be the gathering place in Dunwoody. Krim & Associates, the developer of the Park at Georgetown, wants to talk to you. For more information, call Todd Semrau at 404-226-6526.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Your revolution is over, Mr. Lebowski. Condolences, the bum's lost.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons can get some cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. Now back to our conversation with Chase Medlin of Contrast Artisan Ales.
Chase, we have a little saying, the fourth segment. We've had a really good time chatting with you, Chase. We've drank a fairly substantial amount of alcohol tonight, and all responsibly. We're going to stay here in the studio
Super
for a while.
responsibly.
We very responsibly took hits off of an apple brandy bottle.
Very responsibly.
So, but it's we've had a good time chatting with you, Chase. And we want to talk. You know what? I want to talk to you about an old interview that you did. and it was back in 2015 with Eater Atlanta, and you were talking about Twain's and brewing there, and the subject of IPAs came up. And you mentioned at that time that there was beginning to be a shift from the big bitter West Coast stuff to juicy IPAs. But something I found interesting was the beers that you gave as examples of juicy IPAs. So you mentioned a Georgia one, Tropicalia. You also had Sculpin, Heady Topper, and Pliny. And I got a kick out of that because juicy has really continued to evolve in these last few years. And those beers wouldn't really be considered super juicy, most of them now. So especially Pliny or Heady are not really juicy beers, but at the time they were compared to the West Coast stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were the juicier of them, but I do think that Heady still to this day, because hazy stems from New England, as they call it now.
Yeah.
And I feel like Heady really led the way on that. And it might not be as juicy or as hazy as some of the others, but it was always drink fresh and drink straight from the can, you know? Yeah. And at the time, it was also in an environment where the consumer wanted a more clear beer. So they wanted people to drink it from the can because they wanted the certain texture and aroma and hop presence, but they didn't necessarily, at least in my presumptuous assumption, they didn't necessarily want you to see it. And so it was drink fresh, drink straight from the can. At least that's the last time I had it.
Well, and that's, we talked to John Kimmick there from The Alchemist.
Okay.
And he brought up an interesting point that at the time he released Heady Topper, people just lost their minds about how hazy it was. He got a lot of criticism, you know, about,
Absolutely.
well, this beer isn't.
Absolutely.
But if you look at it now compared to the cloud water that we're making, it's not that haze. It's got a little bit of haze, but it's not hazy.
It pales in comparison to the
Right.
haze you
The
see
people
now.
that are the haze heads right now would not consider that a hazy beer. They wouldn't think it was hazy enough. You know, but at the time it was super hazy and super juicy.
You know, I never really thought about the drink directly from the can, and that makes a lot of sense. So you don't see it, just taste it, and just trust what you taste.
Just
that
enjoy
makes a
the
lot
beer
of sense.
Yeah.
So the juicy and the hazy IPAs, the fruited sours, they've been the rage for the last year or so. What do you think is going to be the next big beer style?
Oh, God.
We're putting you on the spot here.
Where's your crystal ball, Chase?
No idea. Gosh.
Is it going to be putting shots of apple brandy into pastry stouts? I think that might be it.
That might be it.
It's kind of like
might be the next wave.
It's kind of like the Berliners with Mitt Schuss. It's like pastry stout, Mitt apple brandy barrel.
I think we should let the good fellas at Three Taverns know. Brian Purcell, we're talking to you.
Shout out to Brian.
Shout out, Brian. We took your Midnight Smack Stout and we put apple brandy in there.
We did.
Tim did.
So.
Tim did.
Sure, I'll take the.
I blame Tim for this.
We did, so we enjoyed. And the apple brandy that we have, Brian, we're blaming this on you. You brought that in.
Hang on, no, I know nothing about that.
You brought that in.
Brandy.
It's kind of like brandy with like a fistful of Jolly Ranchers in it. So are you getting into? We're seeing a lot more what we call drinking beers, pilsners, you know, ESBs, you know, beers like that. What do you think? We going to see more of those, or is that just a brewer's fad?
We're definitely going to see more of it. I think generally, especially a lot of the big brewers, now that the markets are changing so fast, and this is again presumptuous, just based on my observation of the market, but the big brewers seeing trends change so fast are not able to keep up with always having something new.
Sure.
So I think the next fail-safe would be to market to the converts that might want to be a little bit more adventurous outside of their macro choice, like go-to, and get a craft brewed lager or blonde or something in that vein that's just more easy drinking in that sort of.
And that's what I kind of thought when we started seeing stuff like dry hop pilsners and that. Sure. I said, this is the bridge that brings the craft geeks over to pilsners. Because if you just said, hey, this is a light lager, you know, this is a Czech pilsner, there's not a lot of craft guys that are going to get excited about that.
It kind of worked for me. I mean,
I enjoy them. I enjoy them. But you say, hey, this is you're saying the dry hopping, it worked for you.
Yeah,
so
it kind of brought me over. Yeah.
You know, when they started offering these dry hop pilsners and that, I'm like, this is it. This is the bridge here, you know, to get people more on board with that style.
And something that's going to help too is price point. So,
Sure.
and our buddies out of Creature Comforts are doing this with their Classic City Lager. So they are pricing it to appeal to that type of market where they're already looking for that Pilsner or lager, and that might be the next thing they go to. And I think it's a brilliant strategy. It's a well-made beer.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be the same price as your macro lager, your Bud Light or anything, but
it's not going to be a $10 six-pack. Yeah.
Interesting stuff, man. Well, I tell you what, along those lines and talking about changing the changes, Brian, changes.
Changes,
Brian.
yes.
So the Brewers Association recently revised the definition of a craft brewer. And one of the biggest things they did is that they dropped the portion of the definition that said traditional to keep brewers traditional beers. And this allowed brewers who earn a significant portion of their revenue from things like hard teas, hard seltzers, kombucha, cider, things like that.
Even the CBD and THC beverages.
Right.
They're included.
So for these beverages to be, you can still be in the Brewers Association if you brew those. There was a lot of speculation. The Brewers Association says this is not the case, but there was a lot of speculation that was driven by Sam Adams because they have, I think it's Twisted Tea. Is that right?
I think that's theirs, yeah.
And there's a seltzer. I forget their brand of seltzer, but apparently they're doing quite well with those. So have you ever considered alternative beverages? Any contrast kombuchas?
Kombucha is a thing we've toyed with. I think for the near future, definitely a gluten-free option just for the local community. I think we could do something akin to a hard water where we use a minimal amount of grain and still consider it a gluten-reduced option.
Gluten-reduced, right.
And then back sweeten it with juices we do in-house or other types of tinctures, et cetera. So, yeah.
Interesting.
So the interesting thing with that is apparently, according to a survey that the Brewers Association did, as much as 40% of their members have actually done some sort of beverages that are outside of proper craft beer.
I wonder how liberal they are in that, because I know brewers like to experiment, but and I'll admit, I'm sure the Brewers Association knows what's best for their members, but I think that this is starting to get a little removed from what craft brewing is.
I can see what you're saying there, and their justification for it makes a lot of sense. And what they're saying is they want their members to be able to experiment with these alternative beverages. And if one of them takes off, they don't want them to be penalized for the success of that beverage. So if your kombucha really takes off and it's 80% of your sales, but you still make beer, they're like, well, you still make beer, you're still part of the fold. That is their argument.
But if let's say a kombucha takes off, or let's look at hard seltzer, because those are growing in popularity. Let's say you get to a point where 80% of your revenue is hard seltzer. Don't you think your business interest and your goals and your target audience is going to be different than what a traditional craft brewer?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I mean, at a certain point, you realize, like, this is where our money is made. We need to focus on this product. No, I get that. I absolutely do. I'm just saying that is their explanation of it. They want them to be part of the fold and supporting the cause.
It was approved by the board, and they put it in there.
Yeah.
The BA knows best. Do not question. Trust.
I am not questioning at all. Yes.
What was that, Chase?
I was just going to say some of it might relate to the state regulations in terms of ABV and what that equates to.
Understandable.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
So, Chase, thanks so much for joining us. We've had an absolute blast of a time talking with you. If folks want to keep up with what is happening at Contrast Artisan Ales in Chamblee, how would they do that?
Check out our Facebook page. It's Contrast Artisan Ales. And then we're on Instagram. Soon we'll be on Twitter. Not yet. But the Instagram handle is also at Contrast Artisan Ales, fully spelled out.
Easy enough, right?
Yeah, that's
Good deal.
That's
awesome. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking with Greeley, Colorado's WeldWorks Brewing. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.